What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. The Chiefs coming away with yet another close win, 19-17 over the Chargers, a doink field goal for the division win. Much better second half compared to first half. And if you were here at halftime, the second half went essentially, I would say, spot on with everything that I said needed to happen for the Chargers. At halftime, the spread was sitting at 12.5. And I said the Chargers needed to come out and score on that first drive, and it was essentially like a picture-perfect drive for the Chargers coming out of halftime. They then stopped the Chiefs. They scored another touchdown, and time and time again, whether you took the 12.5 at halftime with the Chargers or you took the Chargers pregame at 3.5 or 4, wherever it might have been at what point in the week, the Chiefs win, but they don't cover, and that has been just their story time and time again this season. They are 12-1 right now, and they are 4-8-1 against the spread. They're currently on a 7-game against the spread losing streak. So amazing stuff from the Chiefs. Like, they're winning in weird ways. They're blocking field goals. They're getting good field goals. You name it. The Chiefs just win games, and I know that can frustrate a lot of people saying, oh, they're not as good as their record. They could have 2 more losses, 3 more losses, 4 more losses. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They win games, and frankly, when it comes down to this, like, we want to extract like betting value from this. If you don't think the Chiefs are going to cover, that means wait for them to fall behind and then live bet them, right? Live bet them at -1.5 or -2. If they're not going to be covering 6 or 7 or whatever the number is going to be, because they were 3.5 or 4. If you took the Chiefs at one point when the Chargers took the lead, the Chiefs at one point were -1.5. So if you don't think they're going to cover their pregame number, live bet them. That is the betting value we can extract from the Chiefs this season. They suck at covering, spreads that are the consensus numbers coming to the game. But live betting offers a ton of value, and it also offers a ton of value for the opposing team because they got out to this lead. The Chargers were plus 12.5. You can take the Chargers. You can still have the Chiefs at -2 or whatever it is. You get them in game, and you can win both of them, which is what happened tonight. So the Chiefs, they win games, but they don't cover. Let's use that information. Let's stop complaining about it, and let's actually just start to be profitable on a week-in and week-out basis. So let's get to some of the player numbers for this. As I said at halftime, like, I was looking for Herbert passing props, and I didn't see any listed on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Granted, I didn't check DraftKings because the Juan Soto news was happening as well at the time, but Herbert had 96 passing yards at halftime. He ended the game with 213, so he probably went over his live number. I would love to have known what his live number was if it was posted anywhere. Herbert, 213, the 1 passing touchdown. Mahomes, 210, and the 1 passing touchdown. I did say Mahomes' halftime number for his passing prop was sitting at 243. He falls under that. So a modest game for Mahomes, all things considered. We did see good usage from Pacheco on the ground. Gus Edwards got a little bit going on the ground for the Chargers. He did get their touchdown. We did see the touchdown of Quentin Johnson. Josh Palmer came up with a big game. And then it was a little bit of Kelsey, a little bit of Worthy, a little bit of DeAndre Hopkins. Like, they had a well-balanced offense, the Chiefs, that is, on their side of things. We are seeing Kareem Hunt. We are seeing him pushed out of the offense just a little bit. And this is not too much of a surprise. Obviously, the Friday game for the Chiefs versus the Raiders last week after Thanksgiving, Pacheco played an extremely limited role. It was his first game back. I think all things considered, we should have expected that. Only 7 carries. This week, he's up to 14. This is probably where we will start to see that flip happen, where we're going to see Pacheco, I'm going to say, let's call it like a 75-25, 70-30, 60-40 kind of split, where Pacheco should be back for the Chiefs, and Kareem Hunt will play a complementary role. So we're going to see the majority of touches go to Pacheco, but it's not going to be like a clear number 1 and a clear backup. It's like a 1A, and then maybe not just a necessary 1B, but like a half step 2 behind Pacheco. So it's good to note that we're seeing the volume go to Pacheco. We can obviously use that going forward for carries, for yards. He'll eventually find his way into the end zone. So again, Chiefs 19-7. Chiefs don't cover the pregame line. This game also hits the under. We have a lot more to get into, not only for this game, but obviously recapping all of today's action, injuries, big games from today, big performances from today, and of course, looking ahead to next week's game, our full playoff mode for a lot of these teams fighting for their playoff seeding. So stay tuned right here on SportsGrid for Pro Football Today post-game show with myself, Tom Vecchio, recapping all of today's action.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome back to Pro Football Today, a post-game show for Sunday Night Football. Chiefs coming away with a victory at 19-17. The under hits. The Chiefs do not cover. Surprise, surprise. As I said, they are 12-1 straight up the season. They are 4-8-1 against the spread. This also locks up the division for them, so a big win for them. We also saw the Bills lose today, which puts them just a step ahead when it comes to securing the number one overall seed, home field advantage, all those sorts of things. You know, I don't have too much else to say about this game other than the fact that we got to look at in-game stuff for the Chiefs. Anytime these games get super close, they are not going to be covering, but they will continue to win. That is something that we want to, use every week. It's just been the pattern this season overall. So this now puts the Chargers, were they 8-6 now? Going to be put in the mix for the wild card. Or they've been in the mix for the wild card, but obviously will be an exciting few weeks. Let's get to some recaps from today. Let's just hop right in. Jags Titans, this game, super unexciting. 10-6 final. 10-6 final in an NFL football game in 2024. Obviously, Mac Jones at the helm for the Jags with Trevor Lawrence done for the season. No touchdowns, 2 picks from him. Brian Thomas, though, the rookie wide receiver, 8 catches, 86 yards on 12 targets, which is great to see. 31 pass attempts for Mac Jones, 12 of which went to Brian Thomas Jr. That is great to see. That's where we want to see the targets going, obviously not just from a betting perspective, a fantasy perspective, et cetera, et cetera. Good stuff from Tony Pollard on the ground, who has really put together a solid, I would say, last few weeks for the Titans overall. Will Levis, slow game from him. Calvin Ridley, the main guy for the Titans in their receiving room. Will Levis did get a little bit banged up with the shoulder. We just have to see if he'll be good to go, because it'll be Mason Rudolph if Will Levis is not good to go. That's all we have to say about that game. A 10-6 final. We don't want to be talking too much about that. Let's move on to Dolphins-Jets. Crazy game at the end. We see the overhit. We see the Dolphins not covering. This game was at 6.5 or 7, depending on where you got it. They win this game 32-26. The Jets are officially eliminated from playoff contention, and this does keep the Dolphins' postseason hopes alive. Tua going for 331-2 in the air. Aaron Rodgers going for 339-1. This was his first time over 300 yards dating back to, 2021 or 2022, December of that year. We know that Breece Hall was out for the Jets. Braylon Allen got the start. Did some good work in the air, good work on the ground. We also saw Isaiah Davis in the mix on the ground for the Jets. Garrett Wilson over 100 yards, Devontae Adams over 100 yards. So good receiving games from the Jets, but ultimately their season is officially done. Would like to see Wilson, Hall, and Devontae Adams still out there, but this was a big game again, as I said, for the Dolphins, keeping their postseason hopes alive. To a big game from him. Devon Achane, 14 carries, only 24 yards on the ground. He did have the one touchdown. He did get a little bit banged up, took a big hit in the second quarter, had to leave the game. He did come back in. Huge game from Tyreek Hill, 115 yards, one touchdown, 99 yards from Jalen Waddle. We saw Jonnu Smith get involved. Finally, once we got to overtime and pick up that second touchdown that came from Tua. Huge game from the Dolphins. They're getting their main guys involved. Raheem Mostert didn't play today, so it was supposed to be a big Devon Achane game. So moving forward to next week, if Achane is a little bit banged up, Mostert is still not good to go. Jalen Wright, one of their rookies, along with Jeff Wilson, we know, a bit of a journeyman veteran, could be seeing more volume if we do see one or two of those running backs, Mostert and Achane, out. Falcons at Vikings is next up. Bit of a slow start to this game, but man, did the Vikings come pouring things on, especially in the fourth quarter. The return of Kirk Cousins to Minnesota, and it did not go well. 344 yards in the air is certainly nice to see, but when that's coupled with no touchdowns and 2 interceptions, things didn't go well. The touchdowns that we saw from the Falcons, we see that on the ground with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, both picking up the touchdowns. It has not been good for Kirk Cousins over this last stretch of games. There's a lot of, I guess we're going to say, people murmuring, people bubbling, the discussion of when are we going to see Michael Penix in there for the Falcons, because it has not been going well for Kirk Cousins, and their season is on the line over the next few weeks. On the other side, for his former team, it was picture perfect for Sam Darnold today. 347 in the air, 5 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown for Aaron Jones on the ground. And we saw a massive game from both Justin Jefferson, who has been a little bit quiet over the past few weeks, and Jordan Addison, specifically Jordan Addison, 8 catches, 133 yards, 3 touchdowns for him is absolutely massive. And like I said, Justin Jefferson, 7, 132, and 2. If you were here on the noon DFS start sit show that I do, I said this was the game for Justin Jefferson. He was going to go over 100 yards and have a touchdown. And that's exactly what he did, not just the 1 touchdown, but the 2 touchdowns. And this is ultimately what we want to see, especially not only just from a fantasy perspective, but a betting perspective from the Vikings when it comes to their passing offense. It should be Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison as the 1 and the 2. Do I expect Jordan Addison to lead the team with 12 targets on a week in and week out basis? No, of course not. It should be those 2 and then TJ Hawkinson, right? It should be like a 1A, 1B, and then Hawkinson. And then, of course, on the running game, it really should just be Aaron Jones and then everyone else. We don't expect Cam Akers to have this much volume weekly, and we don't expect Nick Mullins, obviously, to be in there. He only stepped in because Sam Darnold got a little bit banged up. But it should just be the Aaron Jones show in the backfield. And when it comes to the passing, a high level of consistency is what we get from the Vikings. On the other side, Darnell Mooney, massive game from him, flies over all of his props, as you would assume, 142 yards. Ray McLeod, same story for him, 98 yards. Drake London, decent game from him, didn't find his way to the end zone. And then Kyle Pitts, 1 catch for 14 yards on 6 targets. Kyle Pitts continues to fail every other week or whatever. It seems he's got off to a decent start this year. He kind of turned it on in the middle weeks of the season where he's starting to pick up yards, and that has completely fallen off over the past 3 weeks. The one catch, like I said today, for 14 yards. No catches last week. Week before that, or their bye week, before their bye week, 1 catch for 9 yards against Denver. It has been absolutely atrocious for Kyle Pitts, who has tremendous talent. He's just not putting it together, and they're play calling, whatever it is. Next up, Saints-Giants. We can run through this one super quickly. Giants lose. They continue to be bad. Derek Carr and the Saints come away with the win. Derek Carr did apparently fracture his left hand, his left non-throwing hand, after a fall on the sidelines when he was scrambling for a first down late in the fourth quarter. His news and his status moving forward is obviously in doubt. He also he had the oblique injury earlier in the season. So their quarterback situation, if they're going to lean on Jake Haener again, we have to wait and see on that. Juwan Johnson did come away with the 1 receiving touchdown for them. Kendre Miller found his way into the end zone. Alvin Kamara had a good game, all things considered, over 20 total touches, which is like what we like to see. The yards were okay. 44 on the ground, 35 in the air. We would like to see more. We'd like to see him score a touchdown. This was supposed to be a big Alvin Kamara week, as I spoke about him heavily on the DFS show today. And then ultimately, Drew Lock is just bad for the Giants. It's good to see that the volume is ultimately going to Malik Neighbors. He did have 10 targets. We also saw 10 targets go to Tyrone Tracy and 11 go to Wan'Dale Robinson. So that's good to see. He's at least trusting the main guys in the Giants offense, but it is tough out there for Drew Lock and the Giants. If Derek Carr continues to be banged up or I'm assuming he may not be good to go, it's a little bit of speculation. We got to assume that Alvin Kamara continues to play a big role if the Saints want to maybe make a push for the wild card. So a good matchup on tap next week versus the Commanders for the Saints, that is, and it could be another big Alvin Kamara week if Jake Haener is going to be under center for the Saints. We got more to recap this on the other side of the break. We're coming up against a break right now, so stay tuned here on SportsGrid for Pro Football Today. Post-game show with myself, Tom Vecchio, will run through the rest of today's game. Stay tuned.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome back to Pro Football Today post-game show. Again, we're coming off of Sunday night where the Chiefs come away with another close victory. They secure the division 19-17 over the Chargers. We've been running through today's games, doing a little bit of a recap. Let's jump in. Buccaneers coming away with the win at home against the Raiders. This was a huge game for the Bucs, and I said this on the noon show, where huge game for the Bucs because the Falcons, they were struggling overall, and they were, heading into a tough matchup in Minnesota, and things came out well for the Bucs, where they come away with the win, and we saw the Falcons lose. This does put the Bucs in the driver's seat to come away with the NFC South. Baker Mayfield, good game from him. I'm not going to say great. 3 touchdowns, 295 through the air is certainly great to see. 2 interceptions, not what you want to see. Bucky Irving coming off of a huge couple of weeks, got a little bit banged up. He did not finish the game. We need an update on him, but Rachaad White picked up the slack. 17 carries, 90 yards on the ground, the 1 touchdown. Mike Evans ends with 69 yards on 4 catches. I tweeted about Mike Evans earlier in the week because I thought this was just going to be a big spot for Mike Evans, as it was last week, because Mike Evans hits 1,000 yards season in and season out, and he was a little bit behind the 8 ball this season because of the hamstring injury in the games that he missed. And getting Mike Evans the ball is something that the Bucs want to do, and he fell short of that this week. But I'll of course be looking back to him next week. A good game from Cade Otton, but the story for the Bucs is Jalen McMillan, 2 receiving touchdowns, 4 catches overall, 59 yards. And this is what the Bucs were waiting for. This is what the Bucs needed in someone to step up and be a solid second receiver alongside Mike Evans after Chris Godwin went down for the season. On the other side for the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell apparently has suffered a season-ending knee injury. That's the reports coming out after the game, but is not fully official. Desmond Ridder stepped in after he went out. Sincere McCormick was on the ground for the Raiders as their main running back. Obviously, they've been dealing with a number of injuries, but the story for the Raiders continues to be Brock Bowers, who fell short of his prop study with only 3 catches for 49 yards. But the catches that he did have put him over Sam Laporta's record for the most receptions all time by a rookie tight end. He has been absolutely awesome this season. Michael Mayer did play, their other tight end, did play a big role in the passing game, 7 catches along with Jacoby Myers. Obviously, their season has been done, and we'll see what the quarterback situation looks like for them, because Gardner Minshew is done, Aiden O'Connell is now apparently done, and Desmond Ridder may be at the helm for the Raiders moving forward. Let's move on to the Eagles taking on the Panthers. A close game in this one. The Eagles were 13.5 or 14-point favorites. 22-16 final in this one. Slow game from the Eagles offense overall. Only 108 passing yards from Jalen Hurts. Granted, he did have 2 passing touchdowns, 1 to Devonta Smith, 1 to Grant Calcaterra. Calcaterra could be playing a bit of an expanded role because we know that Dallas Goedert has been placed on IR. We did see Saquon Barkley, 20 carries, 124 yards on the ground, goes over his prop, which was sitting at 110. There were some post-game comments from A.J. Brown. Reporters asking him what the Eagles offense needs to do better, and he simply said passing the ball, because a quiet game from A.J. Brown with only 4 catches for 43 yards. I have to say, on the Panthers side of things, this is now 3 straight games that they've covered. It was a really, really rough start to the year for the Panthers. I think everyone knows that. They're getting blown out by 30 points, 40 points, whatever it was those first 2 weeks. Bryce Young gets benched. It was a rough start for the Panthers, but three games ago, they take the Chiefs to a last-second field goal when the Chiefs are 10.5-point favorites. Panthers cover that game. Last week, they take the Buccaneers to overtime. They lose on a field goal. Panthers cover this game. They're 14 or 13.5-point underdogs coming into today. They lose this game 22-16. Bryce Young has been playing better. I'm not going to say it's amazing, but he is actually taking some legit strides compared to where he was earlier in the season. Adam Thielen leading the way for the Panthers in the receiving room. 9 catches, 102 yards from him. Chuba Hubbard on the ground has been consistent all year. 26 carries. And that's really what their offense should be. Chuba Hubbard, Adam Thielen, those are the main 2 guys. That's where we can look on a week in and week out basis. And man, the Panthers are fighting. What Dave Canales is doing there, they are playing much, much better. They're not winning games, but they are trending up overall in the grand scheme of things. Let's move on to the Steelers coming away with the win over the Cleveland Browns. 27-14, this game got off to a super, super slow start, but the Steelers come away with an important victory, not just for their playoff seeding, whatever it might be, but also their divisional standings with the Ravens on a bye. Slow game from Russell Wilson, only 158 through the air, 2 touchdowns from him. We did know that George Pickens was ruled out prior to the game due to a hamstring injury. We saw a touchdown on the ground from Najee Harris. We saw the receiving touchdowns from Pat Freiermuth and Van Jefferson. Pat Freiermuth led the way with 48 yards, which is a bit low, but again, no over-the-top threat with George Pickens does limit some of their offense overall. But again, a huge game from the Steelers picking up that win because they play the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs in the next 3 weeks. So they could be looking at a couple losses. And again, they have already beaten the Ravens once this season. So maybe a loss next week. It does kind of give them a little bit of breathing room. On the other side, Jameis Winston, he didn't throw for nearly 500 yards as did on Monday night, but 2 touchdowns and, of course, the 2 interceptions from him, as you would assume, as we get the full Jameis Winston experience. But, man, Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku have looked so good over the past few weeks with Jameis Winston. I think we can go to them on a week-to-week basis. Like, again, they may not win games, but they are certainly fun, and a matchup on tap versus the Chiefs next week should just be fun to watch. And then the following week against the Bengals should have all the points and no defense. Let's move on quickly to Seahawks-Cardinals, Bills-Rams. We've got a few more. Actually, here's what we'll do. We have one more segment coming up after this. We'll recap these final 3 games on the last segment. Seahawks-Cardinals, Bills-Rams. Rams coming with a huge victory, not just in terms of the points, but saving their season overall, and then 49ers coming away with the win over the Bears. So last 3 games to recap. We'll recap them in the final segment for the post-game show on Pro Football Today. We had a great slate of games. We obviously have Monday night tomorrow between the Bengals and the Cowboys. I'll be back tomorrow alongside Dave Sherapan and Adam Kaufman for the pregame show. I think we're in for a great one tomorrow night. No defense. Can we play these teams? Don't have anything to play for. Let's get all the offense, all the yards. One more segment. Stay tuned here on Pro Football Today. Post-game show for Sunday Night Football. Again, Chiefs came away with the victory.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio, bringing you over the next few minutes to recap the final three games on today's slate. Let's get right into it. Seahawks coming away with the win, 30-18 over the Cardinals. Top to bottom, it was a pretty solid game from the Seahawks. A couple interceptions from Kyler Murray. The Seahawks capitalized on that, especially on the ground with Zach Charbonnet. 22 carries, 134, and the 2 touchdowns on the ground. Obviously getting the start because Kenneth Walker was out. 1 passing touchdown for Geno Smith went to JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Wasn't a massive game from DK Metcalf. I'm just going to say partly because he didn't need to have a big game. They got some good field position. They ran the ball effectively. On the other side, Kyler Murray, again, the 2 interceptions from him. He did have 2 touchdowns, one of which went to James Conner, the other one to Michael Wilson. We saw a decent game from James Conner on the ground as well. 18 carries, the 90 yards. I still think one of the best spots to go will be James Conner, rushing plus receiving combined on a week-in and week-out basis. And we also saw Trey McBride have 70 receiving yards, which I spoke about on the halftime show back at 2:30, for him to go over 66.5 receiving yards, which he did. He didn't get the touchdown, but he goes over on the yards. Huge game for the NFC West. I will say the Cardinals have 2 massive games over the next 2 weeks. They have to beat the Pats. They have to beat the Panthers in the next 2 games. Seattle, they're playing the Packers and the Vikings. Those are 2 tough games for the Seahawks. So if there's any time that the Cardinals want to save their season, these are 2 must-win games. They need a little bit of help with the Seahawks losing at least one of those next 2 games, which is certainly doable against the Packers and the Vikings. Next up, let's turn to the 49ers. They won at home over the Bears, 38-13. Great bounce-back win from the 49ers. Huge game from Brock Purdy, 325. The 2 passing touchdowns from him. We saw Isaac Guerendo get the start at running back. The 2 touchdowns from him on the ground as well, 78 yards. He got the start because CMC and Jordan Mason were both placed on IR, but now Isaac Guerendo got hurt. Apparently, he has an ankle injury and needs an MRI on Monday, at least per Adam Schefter. Patrick Taylor Jr. stepped in and also picked up a TD. So he now could be seeing the majority of the work if Isaac Guerendo isn't good to go. George Kittle, a massive game from him, 151 yards receiving. I also spoke about George Kittle at the 2:30 halftime show, and I said George Kittle to go over 55.5 receiving yards because he needs to play that consistent option for Brock Purdy in the passing offense to get things going. 55.5 was his line. He ends with 151. He had 138 at halftime, but the big news for the 49ers was Juwan Jennings, 7 catches, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns from him. He is the best receiver that the 49ers have. I'm going to say the best, traditional route running wide receiver that they have. Of course, Deebo Samuel can do plenty once he gets the ball, but Deebo Samuel is more of that gadget player that we've always said likes to get the ball on bubble screens and jet sweeps. When they need consistent yards down the field, it goes to Juwan Jennings. So I will be looking at him week in and week out. And then finally, Rams, 44-42 victory over the Bills. Bills were due for a loss at this point anyway. An insane game from Josh Allen. 6 total touchdowns from Josh Allen. 6 total touchdowns. 342 in the air. 3 passing touchdowns. 3 running touchdowns is absolutely insane. Over 400 combined rushing plus passing yards. Given the MVP right now, a huge game from Khalil Shakir. 106 in the air, 1 passing touchdown, or 1 receiving touchdown, I should say. The other receiving touchdowns went to Mac Hollins and Ty Johnson. Amari Cooper, big game from him, 95 receiving yards on 6 catches, no touchdowns. But it was a top-to-bottom fantastic game for Matt Stafford. 320, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, 2 rushing touchdowns from Kyren Williams on 29 carries, which is a massive, massive amount. And then an absolutely insane game from Puka Nacua. 12 catches, 162, the 1 touchdown, and then Cooper Kupp got his touchdown as well. This is a huge game for the Rams if they are going to make a push for the wild card. They're now sitting at 7-6. They play the 49ers, the Jets, and the Cardinals over the next 3 weeks. I think they can pick up 2 wins there. So a huge, huge game for the 49ers, and really just a huge day for the NFC West overall. All right, so that does it for Pro Football Today, the post-game show. Huge day of games. Next week, we'll be back. There's no more buys next week. So if you remember, all 6 teams that were on buys next week will be back next week. We'll have even more games We'll, of course, move on to Monday Night Football, Bengals, Cowboys tomorrow night. High total. We're going to see lots of points, lots of scoring. We're going to see Joe Burrow go over 36.5 passing attempts. That's what we want to be focused on. Of course, we'll talk about that tomorrow night on the pregame show with myself, Adam Kaufman, and Dave Sherapen. Stay tuned on SportsGrid for all your NFL needs. I'll see you guys tomorrow.